Hello and welcome to Get Informed, America, the show that breaks through the mainstream media box to bring you real smart news. Hi, I'm Dave Okenquist, and joining me is the editor of InformedAmerican.com, Mr. Rodney Johnson. Rodney, how are you?
I'm doing all right, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rodney. Always great to talk to you. Always great to go through the stories of the past few days with the smartest man I know, Rodney. It's always great to get your take on things because there's sometimes I just don't know. I'm like, Rodney, what the heck is going on? And I'm thinking of I've got a couple of stories there, so I'd like to get some clarity on that we're going to get into. I'd like to start though with politics, Rodney. With, of course, the big story is the passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Friday night. And now we await Trump's decision on Saturday. And I may actually pop in for a live video for everybody who's watching when we get the announcement to give a reaction to that. It seems, well, first of all, let's go back just a little bit, Rodney. This wasn't. It's weird with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's been sick for a long time. She's 87 years old, and yet I think something in my mind was, I don't know, she's just going to be sick forever and live forever, I guess, sort of a mentality. It was, in a weird way, it was a little surprising, wasn't it? Or was it maybe just the timing?
Well, I mean, the timing makes it, more interesting, obviously. But she had been sick with pancreatic cancer, which was very difficult to live with for years. And the fact that she had beaten that back, particularly at her age, was amazing. I mean, it was absolutely amazing that she'd been able to do that.
Now, there's outrage on the left and cheerleading on the right as Senator Mitch McConnell was trying to whip up the votes. Now, it appears that he has the votes, but I want to ask you, to have avoided all this, I want to know what you think of this. And this is certainly, I'm not the first to suggest this, that maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg, considering her health, maybe she should have stepped aside before President Trump took office with enough time for President Obama to nominate someone. What do you think of that argument?
Well, yes, if you want to continue a certain view of jurisprudence by justice on the court, then the safest course of action would have been for her to retire in the middle of Obama's second term. Mm-hmm. However, that's a really unusual thing to do. Now, she already had some health issues back then, by the way, and she was clearly, advanced age. She was over 80 at the time, and so she could have done that. But in the midst of that, you then get, within a couple of months there in early 2016, you had Scalia pass, and the Senate said, oh, no, we're not moving on any Supreme Court nominations. And so while Obama's still in office before the election in 2016. And so even if she had looked at it and said, well, perhaps I should retire near the end of his second term, that was kind of, there was a roadblock thrown up by the Senate who said, we're not going to consider anything. And so then the expectation that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and then when she didn't, and then, of course, if McConnell had not brought up anything during the election, he certainly wasn't going to do it during the lame duck there at the end of 2016. So if she had some of those thoughts, clearly they were derailed by Mitch McConnell in 2016.
Does this rank hypocrisy in the part of Senate Republicans to have not done that, but instead they're moving forward here, basically with just over a month, really, maybe 5 weeks time to get somebody through before the election? What do you think of that?
Absolutely, total hypocrites, but total hypocrites on both sides. Yeah. I can make a nuanced argument anytime you want. I can say for the Republicans, well, the end of Obama's term, he was lame duck. He was not going to remain in office no matter what happened. Therefore, it should have remained open for the next president because it was going to be somebody different no matter what. Mm-hmm. That speaks very well for, of course, the Republicans. I can make another nuanced argument for the Democrats where it is your job to do these things back then, and so the senators should have done it. And today, if you were going to say, hey, wait until the next administration, today, the polls all suggest, and the polls are all we have. I know that a lot of people don't believe them, but it's what we have. Okay. The polls suggest Biden will win, and so therefore it would be imprudent from that standpoint to allow this president to nominate a Supreme Court justice in the waning days of his administration when he's not expected to be in office 4.5 months from now.
Yeah.
But again, hypocrites on both sides. It just is what it is, right?
Now, does hypocrisy matter? I mean, if the shoe was on the other foot, would you expect? I mean, I'm basically saying, this is power politics, right? And there's nothing here. The rules around it come from the Constitution about confirming a Supreme Court judge, and they're pretty vague, really.
Right, they are. Hypocrisy matters more than we give it credit for, because what it means is people like me, people like you, people like our voters lose faith in the belief that our elected officials who hold national office will do things for the good of the nation. We think that they're just in it for the power. And we can point to a million things to suggest that this is true, not the least of which being that gaining national office appears to be nothing more than a re-election game. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just it. And so when you see politicians in office for decades, it's like, well, wait a second, what's your career? Well, we know their career. It's politics. And who believes that that's good for us? Who believes that that's the best way to run the nation? And so there was a decent suggestion, to your point, that the rules around Supreme Court justices are not clear. The number can be 9, it can be 14, it can be 7, right? It can be 28, it can be anything. And so to pack the court per se, yeah, any president could do that as long as he's got a willing Congress. But then another president with a willing Congress could whittle it down. So there also are not rules on terms. We have selection for life. And so selection for life is the rule, right? And so why not put term limits on it? Why not just roll it out and say, look, Supreme Court justices are going to serve for 12, 14, 16 years, something longer than an administration that just comes in, and just know that you have this staggered rollover so that we don't get into what we started with in this conversation, which is appointing jurists for what we think of as their jurisprudence point of view.
Yeah. Now, exactly. It becomes a death watch, which is really, it's really a strange thing. And yeah, and I don't. They're appointed for life. Scalia, well, they're all appointed for life, but they all. Ruth Bader Ginsburg this is my job, and I'm going to work it until I'm dead. And
well, they do retire. I mean, Kennedy retired clearly.
Yeah.
And so they do retire from time to time. Typically, they retire for health reasons because, frankly, they got too old to do the job they believe they were there to do. But if you put in term limits, it gets rid of a lot of that. Frankly, I'm a term limits fan for all of them, not just the president, but senators, House members, you name it.
Because you get career politicians, career judges or lifetime judges. Now, let me ask you 2 quick questions. If the shoe was on the other foot, would the Democrats do anything differently? And no. So quickly, no. And now, if Trump was not the president, do you think Republicans would be doing this now, or would they wait?
I think they would be doing it now.
So this is what it is. So all the hemming and hawing.
Well, remember, Harry Reid started all of this when he blew up the filibuster for judicial nominations. And so when Harry Reid did this, as a Democrat leading the Senate, a Democrat from Nevada, when he got rid of the filibuster, he took away power from the minority. And everyone looked at it at the time, I believe it was 2013, and said, hey, man, you're really not going to like this when the shoe is on the other foot. And he's like, well, it's just for the lower justices. And it's like, once you open the door a little bit, the door is going to swing wide. And of course, that's exactly what happened. And so now we have it for the higher court justices, the appellate court, and the Supreme Court. And guess what? The Democrats are already talking about removing the filibuster completely if they take the Senate, so that they can pass any law they want in the Senate without power to the minority. And I find that very interesting because what Mitch McConnell has done, and while he is clearly a master of the rules, Robert's House rules, he has left the filibuster in place for many things, which means that the Democrats have been able to stop legislation as they want, even though they're in the minority. And so they open the door. Reid opened the door. I don't know that every Democrat agreed with him or whatever, but he certainly started all of this.
Now, some may be watching this after Trump makes his pick, and it's down to Amy Coney Barrett and Barbara Lagoa. Now, on the odds site, predictit.org, Amy Coney Barrett has an 81% chance versus just 20% for Lagoa. And then there's a couple small stragglers because Trump basically said it's going to be a woman, so it knocked out all the male contenders. So there's some here I've never heard of: Joan Larson, Allison Rushing, I've heard; Bridget Bate, I haven't heard. Rodney, do you want to? Would you go with the bettors here?
Yeah, I think Barrett is the obvious choice for a couple of reasons. One, she's considered to be a very bright person in the legal world. She hasn't served on a higher court for a long time. I can't remember how long her appointment's been. I want to say a year, maybe two. And so she just didn't have a lot of that experience. I believe she was a con law professor before that. But another notable con law professor was President Barack Obama. Anyway, but she's been through the ringer already. And that's a very valuable thing, to have somebody whose name was already out there and people have already published their hit pieces. They've already said, oh, she's, a Catholic, and so she brings all this craziness with her. And so that sort of stuff, I'm not saying I believe that. I'm saying that the arrows people were going to sling at her have been slung. And so the fact that you have that known quantity is pretty darn valuable.
She's a religious extremist. She's going to bring back, or she's going to make The Handmaid's Tale reality, or something. It's interesting the way this gets framed, but we'll just leave that aside for now, because the question then is, so we don't, we'll see who it's going to be, but then the real question will be, will there be confirmation hearings, or even should there be at this point? Rodney, it seems like Mitch McConnell already whipped up the votes to confirm. And if they're a yes, then, is this just all theater? And what's the point? Maybe they should just move to a vote. What do you think?
Well, you're stretching my knowledge of Robert's rules and the committee assignments. My understanding is the Senate Judiciary Committee is required to vote and then make their recommendation known to the floor, and then the floor can have a vote brought by the Senate Majority Leader. So yeah. I believe it has to go through the Senate Judiciary Committee to get there. Not sure, but I think so. And so, but to the question of theater, you bet. That's what this is. There's almost no question in my mind that if the nominee is Barrett, that she would get nominated. And I don't think there's doubt in much of anybody else's mind either. And part of it does go back to the fact that she's already a known quantity. So we're not trying to find out things. We're not trying to vet her. We're just trying to basically rehash what was already hashed in the press a couple of years ago.
I wonder if there are hearings, what the Democrats' strategy would be, if they're even going to go after Amy Coney Barrett or whoever the nominee is, and just basically use their time to go after Trump. I think that's because it's basically a foregone conclusion.
Well, I don't know. I don't know their strategy. I would assume that they're going to skip past her and speak to the process itself, because that's the safer strategy. Otherwise, they're attacking a woman. And so they would instead move to, well, that's okay, go ahead. When Biden takes office, we'll move the court from 9 to 11 or 13, and he will spend the next 3 years appointing those justices to bring the court back into what they would consider to be balance.
So you don't expect to see a repeat of Brett Kavanaugh, a gang rapist, and predator? No, you don't expect that?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. That would that would not be a good look leading into an election.
Last thing before we move on, what do you make of the Democrat threats to go nuclear? Something I talked about to our subscribers here, which is of course packing the court, which you mentioned, going statehood for DC, Puerto Rico, Guam, maybe anywhere where they could get 2 senators. What do you think of that?
I think DC has a really good case for it. I happen to live in DC in my college years. Their motto is taxation without representation. Mm-hmm. They are a very poorly run district, has been for decades. If you look at what goes on in the district in terms of education and crime and everything, it's just horrible. So that doesn't really speak to the further management. They do have a representative in Congress, but their budget and everything actually comes through Congress, which is really kind of weird. So if they were made a state, perhaps they could get some oversight that would help. I don't know. Puerto Rico has beat this around a long time. The Puerto Ricans themselves appear to oscillate on whether or not they want to be a state.
Yeah,
but
they seem to like where they are, don't they?
I'm sorry?
They seem to like where they are a little bit because they can kind of double dip here and there. They get some of the benefits of not quite statehood, but and some independence on the other hand.
Right. And so, but they do get, a percentage of benefits, right? They don't get full Medicare, I believe, and other things. And so there are some cuts to that. But they appear to like the independence, as you said. And so do they want it? I don't know. DC, I think, would be pretty fast and pretty easy. And if Democrats control both houses, it looks like something that would happen, that would, of course, increase the number of senators that you would presume would lean Democratic. Puerto Rico, not so sure, but so definitely would be on the table.
So do you have an opinion either way? Or you just let them to see if the process works out? Because what's your thought there? I mean, do you support it? Or do you just want to see what happens?
I don't really have an opinion on it. Puerto Rico, I remember, Hawaii wasn't a state, right? And so we did that. Alaska is a very different case given how that came in. But is there a reason for Puerto Rico not to be? I'm not a scholar or an expert on Puerto Rico, but when you look at it, it's been a territory for, 100 years. And so why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't you just kind of formalize that, given its distance from the United States? It's fairly close, and just kind of, make it a thing. And so I don't really have an opinion on that. The District of Columbia, I would like to see it because I'd like to see better management in the district. Mm-hmm. It's not really a state. It was meant to be separate for a very specific reason, right? So that the House of Government was not beholden to a group. Right. And that kind of issue would remain a problem. So I don't have as much of a feeling on that. I would think if I was going to walk through it, I would just as soon see it absorbed into Maryland. I mean, if you're going to make it a state, if your argument is that, well, it needs oversight, well, okay, just let it be part of a state that's already right there.
Yeah.
Of course, that wouldn't serve, a purpose of getting new senators, but it would serve an oversight purpose. I guess I'm much more interested in something that doesn't get a lot of play, which is decentralizing the agencies and departments of the government, whereas Trump had a move to push the Department of Agriculture out across the states and Bureau of Land Management out across the states, which of course I know they're in Colorado and stuff. But the point is, get these agencies closer to the people they actually serve instead of having so much of it concentrated inside the Beltway. And I think that's an idea I would support because I think it might serve our purposes better.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I would love to see that as well. Yeah, move those agencies, just spread them all out. Just like, sort of like almost like a Federal Reserve district system or something. Even if it's not perfect, maybe you just, even transportation, even if it's not in DC, maybe just move it to Chicago or something like that. Just spread it out around the country. I definitely support that. I think that's a fantastic idea. Okay, so that's all we had on the Supreme Court, Ronnie. Let's shift gears, sticking with politics, but also how it impacts economics and the markets. Fed Chair Jay Powell testified before Congress and basically tanked the markets, Rodney, with his remarks saying, Congress, guys, we kind of need you to keep doing your job a little bit. We had that first big round of stimulus, but we need some more. Otherwise, we could see some real danger ahead. What do you think of that?
He's right. I don't agree with what's been going on in terms of the central bank and everything they've done. The central bank is what has kept the economy where it is. And while that's admirable, it ruins what you would consider to be price discovery and interest rates. What should interest rates be? I don't know. But the market's not allowed to tell you because the Federal Reserve has essentially put not its thumb, but a giant sledgehammer on the scale and said, we're going to have zero interest rates. And they said, don't expect inflation to reach near 2% for at least 2.5 years. Don't expect interest rates to go up until 2024, which is a huge wealth redistribution from savers to borrowers. I mean, it just is what it is. And the biggest borrower, of course, is the United States government, who is given the incredible privilege of borrowing at rock bottom rates. I mean, 0.66% for 10 years. I mean, it's just silly. And so it's all about the Fed and what they're doing. Now, the Fed has been fairly straightforward. And what you're talking about is Jay Powell telling Congress, look, we can only do certain things with monetary policy. What we will not do is lend money to people we don't think will pay us back. Now, this kind of gets down into the weeds of their policy and what they're doing with their Main Street lending program and other things. We don't need to go into that. But just suffice it to say that the Federal Reserve has some loan programs where they make loans available to certain groups like cities and states, as well as some others, and they buy bonds not just of the government, but of corporations and stuff. But the Fed's really clear. We don't put money out there that we don't expect to get back. That's called an aid program. That's called a grant program. And those are the purview of Congress. And so Congress, if you want people to keep spending money like they did this summer, you'd better step out and start giving them more money. And unless you do, you are risking the economy tanking on your watch.
So it's the job of the federal government to just throw money away that they'll never expect to get back.
Absolutely. And well, you say throw away, but that's what a grant is, right? That's what
exactly.
a benefit is. That's what these unemployment benefits are. That's, name the benefit program, and it's by definition a benefit.
On informedamerican.com, Rodney, you wrote about this. Fed Chair Powell to Congress: issue more aid money or risk foreclosure wave. How real of a risk is that we could see people getting kicked out of their homes? Now, there is a moratorium on that, but I don't know what. Thankfully, you and I remain employed, so I don't know all the details of what goes on there. But what can we see? Can we see potentially millions of people getting kicked out of their homes?
Well, He talked about that, and let's walk through it. There's a caveat in here, which is really cool. And so, one, there are millions of people who are not making good on their mortgages right now. They are unemployed. We have almost 30 million people receiving continued unemployment benefits, meaning they've been unemployed for more than a week receiving benefits. And so we have these deferment and forbearance programs, and so people are not paying. Now, the programs will come to an end because they're not paying, which means their landlord or lender is not receiving and cannot, pay their own bills. And so there's no program out there that says we're going to pay your mortgage for you. And so because of that, because there's no pot of money making good on those mortgages instead of the homeowner, those programs are going to be pretty short-lived, probably by the end of the year. And so then those deferral and forbearance programs end. People are going to have to start making their mortgages again. The ones who are unemployed will not do it. So we get to a point where you have this home, you're in it, you own it, you're not making your mortgage, and your lender says, hey, buddy, you got to do something. This sounds and feels like 2009, 2010, but it's not. Back then, we made loans, lovely loans with all those names, and the best one I remember is ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets, no problem. We'll give you a loan anyway, right? And so those people had no equity. Very, very different than today, because today we did conservative lending for the past 10, 12 years, and the housing market is hot. It's very low inventory. And so people may not have a job. They may not be making their mortgage payment, but most everyone has equity in their home, and that's a huge difference. So there were very large companies created out of the last housing bust to buy single-family homes. And I know you live in the Tampa area, and I was there at the time. These companies came through and bought thousands of individual single-family homes, and they became essentially institutional landlords.
Yeah.
And so these companies have spent the summer raising hundreds of millions, and in sometimes the case, billions of dollars for the purpose of buying homes in the next foreclosure wave. But there's a kicker. They're looking at a program where they don't foreclose and force you to move out. If you have equity, you don't need to foreclose. You need to sell. That's a very different thing. And so what they're looking at is going to homeowners with a program and saying, hey, sell me your house. I'll send you a check for the equity, and you become the renter in your own home. And what that does is it allows you to remain in place.
And by the way, the rent just went up or something. I don't know.
There are all sorts of issues with it. But imagine what it does. It takes away the pain of the foreclosure, takes away the stigma of the foreclosure on your credit report. It gives you money in your pocket from the equity payout that you receive, and it takes away that issue of having to move. And so it doesn't clog up the courts, it doesn't screw up the finances, and it allows you to stay in place for the, where you live, where you are looking for a job, where your kids go to school. And so a wave of foreclosures may not be what's coming, but a wave of transfer of ownership may be what's on the horizon.
Well, that's not a good thing. I mean, you just gave me, there's the bitter pill and then, there's the poison pill and then the bitter pill. At least, I guess if our only choice is the bitter pill, you got to take it. But that's less than ideal as well. I mean,
Well, of course it is. My goodness, when the choice is foreclose, have your credit dinged, end up in court and move your kids somewhere you don't want to be, or stay in the house you've lived in and get a check, I think that's a decent deal.
yeah. Now we're waiting for Congress to do something here, or at least called on by Jay Powell, and there's negotiations that have seemingly gone nowhere as far as I've seen. I mean, where are we at? If and when will there be another round of big stimulus to help out, Rodney?
I don't know the answer to that. So Nancy Pelosi has another recommendation of a $2.4 billion deal, I believe, that she said she would support, that's making the rounds today. The Republicans have said it's really not going to fly. Still too much. But I'm certain that what she's fishing for is a deal somewhere between 1.5 and 2.4, still centering around that $2 trillion mark. I might have said billions a minute ago, but it's trillions, obviously. And so that's what they're looking for. I think it's kind of dead in the water. We've seen the economy rebound some. We're at the end of the third quarter next week. We're going to get GDP numbers in 3 or 4 weeks for the third quarter. They're going to look pretty good. But unemployment's going to remain fairly high. And so I don't know that it behooves anyone to move on this deal over the next 6 weeks. And that's what we're looking at ahead of the election. Now, if the election goes for Trump and the Republicans keep the Senate, I think you could see a deal fairly fast. I think that would actually speed something through. But if Trump loses the election and the Senate flips, I think that you're looking at January 21st.
Wow. All right. Well, so nothing before the election then. That's more of your hard prediction, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That sounds like that's the case, unfortunately, for all those millions of Americans out of work and could potentially having to give up their homes. It's very, very sad state of affairs. Ronnie, let's shift gears to adult entertainment. You have a story here on informedamerican.com. Playboy about to be public company again. Are they still around?
Who knew?
Much like rock bands and legends you may have thought were dead, it turns out Playboy remains an ongoing enterprise. True, as this past spring, you no longer can get the print edition to hide under your mattress or read for the articles, but the company is still in business. Now it wants to go public again, reversing its move to go private in 2011. Rodney, there's a deal potentially in the works, a reverse merger from partnering with Greencrest Acquisition Group, and they say if the deal goes through, it would value Playboy at $425 million. Wow, Playboy is back, or what's going on here, Rodney?
Well, I think what they're doing is cashing in on the recent interest in these reverse merger deals with SPACs. They're special purpose acquisition companies. And so it's the darndest thing. So it used to be that if you did a reverse merger, you're a private company, you're doing pretty well, you want to be a public company, but going through an initial public offering is rather daunting, takes a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of filing, just a lot of stuff. And so it used to be companies would say, hey, well, let's find a public company that's kind of failing, because, a lot of public companies fall on hard times, and we'll merge with them and just kind of take over, and we'll suddenly be public. And everybody frowned on that. Mm-hmm. And then Wall Street said, hey, man, we can make money doing this. Let's create a bunch of these dummy public companies that have no business, meaning they literally don't do anything. They tend to have a couple $100 million in the bank. We'll run through the initial public offering process because we know how. We'll do them by the dozens, and then we'll just put them on a shelf. And whenever somebody wants to reverse merge, we'll say, hey, come with us. Yeah. And so that's what Playboy is doing. I find it fascinating because they went private back in 2011 for a couple $100 million, and now they're going public at a deal that is valued around $425 million. And so the owners are making a couple $100 million, which isn't a bad deal, although the markets have more than doubled since then, so it's arguable that they didn't get their money out of it. But in a broader sense, beyond all the stupid stuff with Wall Street and what happens with money flow, and we know they rip people's heads off anyway, the whole idea that Playboy still exists is just amazing to me. I just didn't know, right? I guess I knew. I guess I had seen the deal in the spring when when the print issue went away. Because it seems like an ending of an era. But the whole idea that they're still around, and not just around, but enough of a viable business to where this whole reverse merger makes sense, I just find that fascinating.
Now, Ronnie, purely for research purposes, I pulled up the Playboy.com main webpage just to take a look because, like you, I was. Yeah, I don't know what are they around, but apparently they are. And here I'm on the website now. Interesting, Ronnie. They've pivoted to CBD. They now sell introducing CBD by Playboy. Summer, sizzle, explode. Take pleasure to the next level, Rodney. Also at the top, there's just a link to. It says, welcome our September playmate. She's an optimist and herbalist who manifests her dreams into existence. Who do you think this is for? We also at the top here, they have a how to make your vote count. And it says here, with recent attempts from President Trump to undermine mail-in voting, we have to be more vigilant than ever. Interesting pivot there to politics. Also, they have a Black Lives Matter banner. Rodney, they sell face masks. So if you're interested there, you can hop on over for only $14.99. They sell apparel. Now they're fanny packs. And I'm scrolling here. I don't know who this is for. I mean, there's lots of strange articles. They're very political. There's one on RBG. There's one about feminism. There's one about Colin Kaepernick. And then as we scroll down, and then some other things appear. They also seem to have a digital channel and the CBD line. So I don't know. Looking at this, I don't know what this company is.
Well, you know what it's not, right? It's not the company of your youth.
That's what I'm saying.
So
that's what I expected. I don't know what this.
Many years ago, you could order physical stock certificates, and I don't even know that you can anymore. I mean, who would? But it was a thing where you would buy 10 shares of Disney, and you would order the certificate, and you would do it in your child's name or whatever. And the certificate was actually quite beautiful. It had an illustration there of Disney characters or whatever, and it was meant to be framed and hung on the wall. Mm-hmm. Now, they were legitimate shares of stock, 10 shares, 100 shares, whatever it was, but it had a picture on it. And so in my head, I can see Playboy going public again, offering physical shares of stock with pictures on them. Now, it may not be something that you put on the wall, but what the heck? It could get them back into the print business.
But what I would imagine now, I don't know what that picture would be. That's my confusion. I don't know is it going to be a picture of an alluring woman or something about, I don't know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have no clue what that would be.
Maybe it's just, a lottery system where you might get one that's Colin Kaepernick and somebody else gets Playmate of the Month. I don't know.
So I don't get this. I don't know what I can't tell you what the future of Playboy is. But if you are, if this reverse merger has you excited as their new CBD line product can get you, maybe that could be an opportunity if this deal goes through.
Yep.
Rodney, keeping on the topic of silliness here, there was another story here from foreignamerican.com. This Prime bike business, Rodney, this was a strange one. As you said about that Prime bike, Amazon says not us. Now, this company Echelon posted for sale what they called a Prime bike in an attempt to take on Peloton, and pricing severely undercutting the price for just $500. There was a flurry of stories, Rodney, in the media just a couple days ago of this. Is this the new Peloton killer? And then Amazon decided to just kill the potential killer. What is going on with this situation, Rodney?
So Echelon announced the Prime bike, and Prime, of course, being an adjective that's used at Amazon for Prime Video, Prime Shopping, Prime whatever. And so Echelon said that here's the Prime bike at $499, and in their press release, they said that they developed it in collaboration with Amazon, which of course led to all of this where Amazon is getting into the exercise equipment business. And so the next day, Amazon said, no, not us. We have nothing to do with it. They not only forced Echelon to remove the press release from their website, they also removed the Echelon bike from the Amazon website. Gone. And so this is, you don't anger the giant. That's a really bad idea. And so I don't know who at Echelon had this miscommunication going on or thought they were just going to slip one by the largest, e-commerce site on the planet. But it was really bad choice.
Speaking of angering the giant, I'm a Prime member. I don't know if you are or not, but I found myself buying so much. I don't want to say how many thousands of dollars I spend on Amazon every year. But one of the benefits is of course free returns. And I do in the back, I've heard Amazon sometimes will kill your buying account. And I sometimes I do wonder when I'm returning it, like, will this be the return that they're like, okay, dude, you got to stop sending us stuff back? Because I do buy and I return a fair amount of things too. In my mind, I figure I spend enough, so that's okay. But yeah, you don't want to tick off Amazon.
Well, actually, so it's worse than that. So Amazon will, of course, kill your Prime account if you're returning too many items.
Yeah.
But there's a company, and I can't remember their name, I wish I could, that actually tracks your spending as a consumer at Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, you name it. And so they track how you buy and how you return items. And if you return too many items, well, and they just track it. Let's go there. And then you get essentially a score. And so when you go to return an item at Home Depot, they do see your return score as a consumer, and they make a choice as to whether or not they're going to take back items from you. Now, they can't do anything about you bringing back an item within their stated, days, right? If they say they'll take back an item within 30 days, then by golly, they're going to take it back, because then they're breaking the law. It's fraud. But most retailers have leeway in returns. And if you bring it back at Home Depot within 60, 90, 80 days, whatever, they just take it back. But if you have one of these low scores, then no, they do not. And so we have a social credit system going on in the United States that we just don't talk about very much, because it's not obvious to the average consumer, because it's not something we ever see. But it's out there. I mean, I'm not making this up. It's not a conspiracy. This is a real thing where a company sells this data to the individual retailers so that they essentially know the customers they want to make happy. If you're returning all the time and then, you go 10 days after the return date and say you want to send it back, they're like, no thanks, because you do this. But if somebody doesn't return all the time and they want to bring it back 60 days later, that's the customer. Home Depot's like, we want to make you happy, so we will extend this courtesy to you. And so that's what it allows them to do.
Yeah, well, you want to stop abuse. But so what happened here, Ronnie? At some point along the way, when I when I started my Amazon account or something, or if shopping somewhere along the way, somebody sent me a terms of use of whatever my debit card is, as we're going to sell your information. When did I don't remember approving of this.
You were told that one of the privileges you get of being a card member is that they will share your data with essentially anyone they feel like. And your choice is, do not use a credit card in the United States of America. That is your choice. And so if you're good with that, then you go right ahead. But to say that you have a choice is, of course, meaningless. You don't.
Of course not.
So if you're going to use if you're going to use anything other than real dollars, then you are essentially agreeing to have your data shared in a lot of ways. Now, it doesn't mean it's shared for advertising. This is not about advertising. This is about analytics on activity, which is very different.
Craziness. Now, Rob, what do you think of this concept? By the way, this Echelon CEO, he's sticking with his story. He came out, he said, we worked with Amazon. We saw them at a consumer electronics show. They said they were excited about our product. They were asking for a $500 price point. We made it happen. They even agreed to call it Prime Bike. And I don't know where the discrepancy lies, but what do you think of maybe something that could go after something, a company like Peloton and a big giant like Amazon? Now, this thing was $500. A Peloton is, I believe, $2,400 thereabouts. And the difference here, I mean, I don't know I couldn't tell you what the difference in quality of the bike is, but I did notice one of the differences there is there's no display. You'd have to get your own iPad or tablet or something, and then subscribe to some service where people are yelling at you to keep pedaling or something like that. Do you think there could be a Peloton killer out there?
I don't know if there's a Peloton killer. I mean, the Peloton bike, they lowered the price to $18.95 because they introduced a new bike that has a swivel panel and different things on it for $24.95. And Peloton requires a $39 a month subscription to, as you put it, pay people to yell at you in class. The Echelon bike is $4.99, doesn't come with a screen, but it has a holder for a tablet. And most people, you have a tablet, you get a tablet for, I don't know, $100, whatever they are. I don't know. And then you get some service for 90 days, just like with Peloton, and then you go on with a subscription. So It is meant to be a lesser functioning thing, right? It doesn't have all the frills of a Peloton bike, but frankly, if you want to get on and spin and have somebody yell at you in real time, they can make that happen. I said about this story at the beginning, a miscommunication with Amazon, because I think that's what it was. I don't think that, because Echelon is a well-known equipment maker. It's not like they're just some fly-by-night, operation. And so I doubt that the people who run Echelon said, hey, let's see if we can skate this one by. I made that joke, but it's not true, of course. But I don't know where the miscommunication lies. It may very well lie within Amazon, where whoever was doing this didn't run it all the way up the flagpole to get buy-in. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm still struck by the fact that people will pay $2,000 for what is likely to become the world's most expensive clothes hanger in the corner within 6 or 8 months. And so
whatever works.
My thought is that by next summer, you're going to be able to find a Peloton bike pretty darn cheap on Craigslist.
Oh, there you go. Rodney, as you're talking about this work at the flagpole, I just imagine Bezos in some dark room or something. He's like, he gets the call, kill it. And then it just gets deleted.
Yep. I'm sure that does happen.
And actually, Amazon stock took a little bit of a hit on all this craziness going on. So it remains to be seen what if Echelon can get their act together and maybe work something else out, or as you say, maybe we just go. You don't have to wait for anyone to kill Peloton. You just check Craigslist for anyone to show up.
Exactly.
All right, well, I'd love to know what all of you think about these topics that we covered today. If you can comment down below. If you're watching on Facebook, we'd love it if you could share your thoughts on these topics. Also, hit the like button and share this video with your friend. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. And Rodney, over the weekend, we're going to get some news of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement. I want everyone to go check out our Facebook page for updates on that. No doubt you will have an article on that coming up the next couple of days. Also, people can always go to wallstreetwirenews.com for market news. Rodney, any final thoughts here to wrap up today? We're looking ahead maybe to next week. I know there's a big event coming up on Tuesday.
Well, I mean, we do have the end of the quarter coming next week. I don't know what event you're talking about next Tuesday. You can fill us all in.
Well, on the political side, sorry, there's a debate with President Trump and Joe Biden Tuesday night.
You're the one that watches the debates. I don't watch those darn things.
Okay. By the way, I will be hold on. Rodney's not watching. Okay. I will be watching, and I will be. I think the plan is to hop on after the debate on Tuesday night. So don't pay attention to what Rodney's saying. He's poo-pooing the debates. They're very important. We need to know. We need to know how they discuss the issues. So
I have a suggestion. So, and this is live, and so people can, it's not like we rehearse this or anything.
No,
I think it would be best for our subscribers and watchers if Dave live streamed his comments, but was required to take a drink at least once every 25 minutes of hard alcohol, so that we have essentially what's called drunk blogging by Dave during the debate process. I think that would be, I would watch for that, Dave. If you agree to this, I will actually watch that debate and have your stream up so that I can see your comments as we go forward. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I think that, okay, well taken, but I don't know that I will survive because I think the debate is about 2 hours or something. So maybe we might need to mess with the intervals there.
You set the pace that you believe will be correct for you to actually make it through the debate, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Ronnie, for everyone who goes to wallstreetwirenews.com or informedamerican.com, or if they're interested in and if they go and they share their email and they get news in their inbox every day, what kind of stories can they anticipate getting next week, as we're not paying attention to the debates, but at the end of the third quarter, what are some of the things that's going on?
Well, it's going to be Supreme Court Justice nominee. That's going to be the big thing, of course. And then you're going to see some more fallout from what happened in Lexington, Kentucky, and with Breonna Taylor, and so the non-indictment of the officers involved in that. On the financial side, we're getting the end of the quarter, and so the end of the third quarter is going to be big. It tends to be an ugly time for stocks, and certainly September has been. But we get a rebalancing, which is probably what happened to Amazon over the last week, and certainly Tesla, as people who made a lot of money took money out of those stocks and put it into other things. And so just a lot of turmoil. I expect upheaval over the next week as we get through the end of the quarter. And then on Friday, of course, next week, we get the unemployment report for August, and we find out the number of jobs. So.
Yeah, looking forward to all of that next week. Thank you so much, Rodney. For Rodney Johnson, I'm Dave Oakenquist, telling you to get informed, America.
You've been listening to Get Informed, America, brought to you by the Informed American Radio Network. Please like and subscribe today in order to get new exclusive weekly episodes. Any questions, thoughts, or comments can be sent directly to info@informedamerican.com. And don't forget to visit informedamerican.com to keep up with real, smart news. Until next time, fight fake news and find common ground.